Hello, I'm Linda Ann Smith, and I'm a member of Creative Arts Collaboration. Our October hashtag event is titled #ThinkPinkArt. I feel fortunate to be here creating today because I'm a 20-year breast cancer survivor. Just got back from a vacation to the South, and I was traveling light. I only took some pens, pencils, and a couple of mixed media pads. Keeping this Think Pink Art hashtag event in mind, I did a lot of sketching so that I would only have to paint these in when I return for this event. I'm working mostly with Deco Art products today, and I chose the Americana multi-surface satin in almond and in ballerina. This color is called Red Hot, Pine Green, Yellow Oxide, and Aquamarine. My favorite painting palette is just a white porcelain plate. I'm going to take the colors that I'll use to mix the skin tones and place them in several little puddles around the plate so that I can mix various skin tones. And those colors I chose for the skin tones are Ballerina, Red Hot, Yellow Oxide, and Almond. From previous experience, I know that these will mix to make a skin tone, but I also know that later I can remix them in different proportions to get a highlight or a shadow. And I also mix a little blue or a little aquamarine for my shadows. I choose a wide flat brush first to fill in the larger areas, and I'm going right over her lips and nose and over the lines. The broad brush gets a lot of color on in a hurry, and I'm just laying down a base foundation right now. Normally in a realistic portrait, I would not leave the eyes so bright white because the whites of our eyes don't really look white. But since the eyes are kind of going to be the center of interest for me, I don't really care that it's not going to be a realistic portrait. It's not meant to be realistic. You may have noticed that when I got to the details around her face that are very busy and complicated, that I switched to a smaller brush. I've decided I'm going to tell my happy breast cancer story. It's not a sad one, but if you don't want to hear it, turn down the volume for the next couple of minutes, and I'll tell you when to return. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm a 20-year survivor of breast cancer, and my story is not about chemo or radiation. My story is about a mammogram. The cancer that I had 20 years ago was so deep inside the tissue that I could never have detected it with self-examination, or the doctors couldn't have found it without the mammogram. The mammogram not only located the cancer, but it found it so early on that my treatment was simple and quick. This tiny little cancer that was pronounced to be an extremely fast-growing cancer was found early, and so the cancer was removed and the tissue around it was removed to be sure that there was no cancerous cells around it, and all this was done in outpatient surgery. When my friends and family were going through much worse circumstances than I did, I kind of hid that I had had cancer because I didn't feel like a cancer survivor. I had always thought of cancer survivors as being someone who had gone through great trauma and pain. And today I realize the fact that I don't feel like a cancer survivor is due to the early detection. How fortunate am I to be here painting today? So the final word I'm going to say on this before I go back to teaching art again is if you need a mammogram and it's time, go get it. Don't mess around. Don't be one of the cancer survivors who suffered. Okay, there's some shiny places on this face that still need to dry, but I used the same colors that I mixed the first skin tone and added a little bit of blue to get the color under her chin, and kept painting those skin tones in with shadows and highlights and various proportions of the same colors that I began with. And now I'm painting in the pink ribbons. This color I made by mixing the Red Hot with the almond. I don't believe I showed you the ultramarine blue paint in the earlier show and tell at the beginning of the video, but I used just a teeny dot of that in some of the skin color and some of the lip color to accent these lips here. Ultramarine blue is the same blue that I used to get the skin tone for the neck to make it darker. Now I'm going to switch back over to the aquamarine. I always have to get a color in this color family on my composition someplace. So I have blue eyes, and I'm going to give her blue eyes. I'm painting in the iris and skipping over part of the little dots that I made for highlights. I'm going to go back later and put in another little dot right in the center of the pupil. Even though the pupil's black, our eyes are shiny, and they will reflect that light on the top of the pupils. So here I'm making sure that the aquamarine comes up around her eyes like eyeshadow. A lot of this painting is very much like putting on makeup. Whether you're working on an easel or on a flat surface, it's important to turn the canvas in a direction that's most comfortable for you to work. I'm adding some skin tone shadows here under her nose so that it will form the nose a little better. And one of the things I wish I'd caught on camera, I did it off camera, unfortunately, is I use a clear acetate sheet and paint on top of that sheet. When I'm not quite sure about the color, then you can hold that right over the painting and see how it looks. The only thing is, if your paint's dry and what you put on the acetate isn't dry, well then you can't really tell because the color of the paint dries differently. And I also have to keep in mind that they're on two different substrates, but it's a pretty good indicator whether it's going to be a good color or not to hold that right on top of the canvas and look at it. I'll demonstrate that in a future video. And here I'm using some of that bluish, I got kind of a violet when I mixed it with red, and then I went back to the blue a little more to get some more shadows here. With each layer that you add, the features begin to pop just a little. Try not to rush it. If you go slow and build up layer by layer, you're going to be a lot happier. I've decided not to worry about, well, I already decided early not to worry about realism. And I'm putting a little line on the side of her nose just to define it a little more. I noticed that the one eye looked quite a bit bigger than the other eye, so I'm adjusting that a little bit as I go. We think of faces as being symmetrical, but they're not perfectly symmetrical. There's differences on each side. I tend to work all over the canvas. I try to work more systematically when I know somebody's watching me, but when I'm painting, I'm all over the canvas. And again, artists, if you have any experience with putting on makeup, this is very much like putting on makeup. You just put in the tones that you would put on your face. When I'm painting in the eyelashes, I think of it as putting on the mascara. I'm ready to start working on the leaves and foliage in her hair, so I'm using the pine green and the Hansa yellow. I pulled the Hansa yellow from the box because I don't always know when I first start exactly what color palette I want to use, and some of these paints are new to me from Deco Art, so I realized after I got into it that I needed the Hansa yellow. Okay, where's the complaint department? My camera battery died again. And I already had the paint mixed, so I went ahead and painted in the leaves before it dried. I really, though, I guess I got a little anxious because I could have put that paint in the freezer, put something over it and put it in the freezer. It would have been fine, but I was in the mode to be painting, so I went ahead and painted in the leaves. You didn't miss much. My colored pencils were close at hand, and I kept trying to mix the color that I liked for the flowers, so I decided to use colored pencil to get into these little tiny detailed areas. What I did was I went over the centers of them very lightly, softly, and then I pushed hard on the pencil to get a deeper color as I went towards the edge. That may or may not show up in all of these, but I wanted to give the flowers a little bit of depth so they didn't look like just flat. If you'll notice these little green leaflets, they have a white space all the way around them, and I was going to paint that a very deep forest green, but after I put in the flower color, I decided that a good color scheme for this whole thing would be to put in a deep purple on those. So later I'm going to switch to a dark purple pencil. Right here I kind of got off onto my face and I had to go over there and fix her rouge. Her makeup got smeared. On something that I put this much time into, a big bauble might bother me, but little baubles don't bother me. I just try to find a way to make it look like that's what I meant to do. I used to tell the students at school that when they would make a little bauble, they'd want a whole new sheet of paper, and they might have just written on the very center of it a quarter-size pencil line, but they wanted a whole new sheet of paper. And I tried to instill in them that sometimes in art, the things that we call mistakes can be our best friends because it causes us to think harder about what to do and how we can solve the problems that we come against. And often the most creative things that you do come from problem solving where you've made that, quote, mistake, end quote. See how pretty that violet color looks up against these other colors? I think that's just a real nice color scheme. I had plans for those earrings, but I think I'm going to leave them white. My plans were to use gold embossing powder and emboss them, but if I did that, it would distract from the center of interest, which I see as her eyes. I hope you'll check out the Deco Art paints that I used today. Found these to be a very smooth, easy paint to work with, just like melted butter on a biscuit. If you have questions, let me know in the comments section below. I would appreciate any comments or suggestions that you have, and a thumbs up. I'd also very much appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel for future art tutorials. To locate other videos by artists who are participating in this month's hashtag event, go to your YouTube search bar and type in hashtag ThinkPinkArt. Thanks for watching, and come back soon.